What is going on, everybody? Happy whatever day you're watching this. We are doing the NFL for Week 12. We've got a big, interesting week here this week. We don't have the obvious places to go that we've had in the past, and there's going to be some spread out ownerships, a lot of interesting plays. Sheets, this is going to be a wild one, huh?
Yeah, it is. You don't have your usual, I guess, cast of characters, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, you have your usual, Seattle's not in the main slate, Arizona's not in the main slate, Kansas City's not in the main slate, and these are usually the teams that generate, the majority of the fantasy points. So it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. I mean, it's funny, at the beginning of the week, we'll get to it, but there was one game that I was, and again, I'll put the same video out of like my process from beginning of salary views all the way to like the end. And there's one game that kind of stood out for me as my first look, and they're probably not going to be too highly owned. We'll see. And then I guess everybody's going to be gravitating towards this Atlanta thing. So I guess we got to talk about that. And it'll be some good stuff to get into.
Yeah, I want to say that this is a week where I don't think that you have to say, oh, I need a piece of any single game. I really don't think you need to look at it that way. And I think you can play what seems like a really, look, I mean, the totals are just low enough where everybody is sort of in play, every stack. So we're going to have some interesting plays on every side of it. Let's start off with that. Why don't you call up your screen and we'll go game by game. And we'll make sense of this with each other here, because I've got some pretty strong takes, but I still feel like there's more I want to figure out. Anyway, Sheets, can you hear me over there? Because I look like I hear.
So what's interesting again is yeah, you don't see?
Hello? We're having a tiny bit of technical difficulty over here. I'm in my quarantine house going to visit my family. So if it hiccups a little bit, give us a little bit of a break. We've got Sheets' screen called up now, and we're going to talk a little bit of Atlanta, New Orleans. Eric, what are your thoughts on this one? I know we were talking a little bit off air that maybe you're not as interested as where the field would be.
I think Kamara is a really good play at running back. I think that the slate, people are going to do one of three things. They're either going to play Cook, or they're going to play Kamara, or they're going to play both. I don't think very many people are going to play neither, which we can talk about, by the way. Mm-hmm. And Kamara is one of the top plays on the slate. The other thing is that the wide receiver position, Julio is one of my favorite, wide receivers overall on the slate, just in terms of projections and stuff. But on a slate where you don't have your normal, Seattle's and Arizona's and Kansas City's and these concentrated type games, there's a lot of kind of games that people are looking at as really fishy. So what I think tends to happen is they start to gravitate towards one game. And I'm getting the sense that, that the Atlanta Saints game is just going to be overowned. People, okay, so Jameis Winston is starting, I guess, right, for the Saints. And people have this memory of, whenever Jameis Winston's in the game, it's just kind of a fantasy point gold mine, right? He throws the ball 100 times. He also, he could throw some interceptions too, but, he has 350 yards and things like that. And then you also have this idea that, it's a dome game and Atlanta is not, the greatest defense in the world. So I think people are kind of gravitating to this, but I don't know, man. Jameis Winston hasn't started a game in a while for openers. Right. Second of all, I'm not so sure that Sean Payton's going to say, hey, this is what you did over with Arians. Let's just go out there and start flinging it. The Saints are basically a running team. They always have been. They have been for the past 5 years. And they do play very conservative. They mix it around. They bring in Taysom Hill. They just kind of, they do what's needed. And I don't know if Jameis Winston as chalk is something I'm really honestly particularly interested in. I also have to say that I kind of rank these teams kind of by based on their values, based on their whatever, from a stack perspective. And I have to say that again, my tool is very, very primitive, and I just haven't been working on it for a couple of months. But But I have the Saints, for example, at like 8th, and I have the Falcons at like I don't know, man. I don't really like the Falcons too much. If you want to know the truth, so I'll play Kamara, and maybe in some one-offs I'll play Julio, and I guess Hayden Hurst is a good play at tight end, but I'm probably going to be under on this. And if you want kind of a weird take, this is not, I guess, not that weird a take if people are playing Jameis Winston. If you think about it, is Atlanta's probably tied for my favorite defense on this whole slate, believe it or not.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so, okay, good. Okay, because of James. So for me, it's like I really have 2 defenses, and Atlanta just kind of snuck into being one of them. I guess it makes sense. If Jameis is going to be popular on one side of the equation, it's because they think he's going to swing it around, making it possible for this to happen. But I'm kind of into the idea that the Saints rely on their defense. They always do. They have a really good defense. They shut Tampa down. They shut down. Well, San Francisco's not a big deal, but they lost Breeze last week, and they put the clamps on them. Not that Julio's particularly, shut downable, but they're going to throw Lattimore out there on him. They're going to rely on their defense and rely on their running game, and I think the game's going to be more boring than people think. That's just kind of my take on it.
I think that all of what you said makes sense, except for I don't know if I agree with you that the ownership's going to be as high in this game.
Oh, okay.
That's where I'm at. My early ownership projections, and I'm only looking at a couple different sites right now, but I've got only 2 players above 10% in this game. Now I imagine that'll probably Julio will jump above 10% because he's below. It's Kamara and Thomas, and if that's the case, I want to be overweight on those guys, especially against this Atlanta defense. Let's just think about that as individual matchups. If someone said before, like, first of all, Kamara is the best play at running back. I don't care. Atlanta, I know their numbers are a little better against running backs this year than they have been in past years. I'm not buying it. I love Kamara here. Can you hear me over there, Sheets? It says looked like I was maybe hiccuping for a second. Oh, maybe it did for a second.
Do you like Kamara better than Cook?
I think I do, but we'll get into that in a minute. But I do like Kamara and Thomas. I think you can play Kamara. I think there's different ways you can build. There's some cheap guys I like on the slate. I'll just throw out some ownerships. I think it's worth it to get some Calvin Ridley here, especially if you buy into Julio Jones getting tied up a little bit. We haven't seen a big game from Ridley in a while, but coming back off the injury list should be low owned. Actually, been pretty good, decent matchups for secondary receivers against the Saints this season. And I think Ridley is in play. I mean, look, I'm talking about a guy, maybe I have 12% of Calvin Ridley, 10%. Julio Jones is a guy I'd like to get 15 to 20% of, maybe even more. I want 20% of Michael Thomas. I want 25% of Alvin Kamara. So I actually do want guys in this game, assuming those ownerships stay where they are. And then sort of your dark guys. Actually, I like Hayden Hurst about 10%. I've got 7% Emmanuel Sanders. I want to get some exposure to the low-owned parts of this game. And right now, it looks like most of the parts are going to be pretty low-owned. But again, it's a Thursday. It could change by Sunday easily.
Yeah.
So it's going to come down to that, really. And then we'll get into it as we go, and maybe reason why some of these plays aren't great. I kind of agree with you about the game not being this great game. I love the Atlanta defense. If the Atlanta defense is really going to be unowned against Jameis, I mean, this guy averaged like 2.5 turnovers a game. That's almost impossible to do. You can't throw 30 picks. It just doesn't happen. You know what I mean? How are we not going to take a shot on Jameis here? Against Jameis. But by the way, I do have some Jameis lineups too, because I think he could. I wouldn't be surprised to see him do like an Alex Smith thing where he throws the ball. If they get behind for some reason, if he has to throw the ball, they could throw the ball 35 times, and he might, he'll take some shots downfield. He's going to throw for 300 yards if they somehow are trailing in this game easily, and you got a couple touchdowns, and all of a sudden he's a great value.
And also, I didn't come up with the Saints defense this week. I thought that I was going to, but I didn't.
I just find myself so much these days just taking these cheap defenses. There's enough good opportunities with enough quarterbacks out. There's another one we'll get to in a minute that you can make the same argument with against, you want to jump over to Detroit, Carolina?
Yeah. Just give me just 1 second to update this thing over here.
Yeah. In the meantime, I do want to just say.
Yeah. So Detroit, Carolina.
Yeah. Detroit, Carolina. Last thing I'll say is Russell Gage is actually in play for me as one of my long shot millionaire maker kind of guys at 3,900. He plays much better with Julio and Ridley in the lineup. It's bizarre. Sorry, Sheets, go ahead. Sheets.
So, yeah. So what, you're not gonna. Yeah. I'm just thinking you're not gonna. I don't think you're gonna like my take on this game too much.
Okay.
But I'll just throw it out there. There are two teams that are kind of tied for my favorite stacks relative to value, and if Bridgewater plays, Carolina is actually ranked number 1 for me. It's a little ridiculous, I suppose, but that's it's enough where I'll rely on my models a little bit and maybe play a good, solid 10-15% of them, I suppose, just for kicks. So just to throw it out there. So Bridgewater, if he plays, obviously, Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore, and that's where I'm there. I don't want to play. I'm not going to play Mike Davis, although he's fine. I don't think I can get there. You know what I mean? I think I'm going to either pay up for the Cook Kamara. I'm going to drop down a little bit, I think.
Right.
So I just don't think I'm going to get there, which I guess makes those guys low owned, right? Mike Davis, DeAndre Swift, guys like that, in that price range.
DeAndre Swift is going to be really popular.
Oh, really?
I mean, I have him. I don't know if these early projections will hold at all, but he's one of the most popular players on the slate of anybody as of right now.
Yeah. So I really like So I'm gonna play the Carolina passing game.
We're on the same page here, my friend.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Okay.
I actually will even go with it without these guys a little bit. You take McCaffrey out of there. You put a secondary like Detroit has. They've gotten away with playing teams like Washington. Now I know Detroit, even if Carolina's missing Bridgewater, obviously that's a big blow to them. But if Bridgewater plays, and even if he doesn't, I especially like DJ Moore here. I think we're still getting, there's so many times this year this guy's put up what could have been, monster games that he was 4 yards off the 100-yard thing last week. He dropped. They had a callback touchdown in the end zone. He hasn't made the most of his targets, and in a funny way, actually, if Bridgewater's out, because maybe he doesn't dial in on him as much, because he's the best receiver, I think you might actually see more action out of him. I also really like Curtis Samuel. I think we've seen what Curtis Samuel does in games where they don't have they use him sort of, they'll run some sweeps for Curtis Samuel. They'll use him getting the ball out in the flat real early, almost like an extended running play. They use him so much more when they don't have McCaffrey in there, or at least they have been. So I'm really liking this whole Carolina offensive attack. I have no problem, though. I don't understand. There's going to be nobody on these guys for Detroit. I'm definitely going to be overweight on, well, the main one will be, I don't know how he is or what's going to happen. But as of right now, Galladay or Jones, but probably Galladay, just even though, look, he might be hurt, he might be whatever. I know he's been limited to all this stuff. I just feel like at 5.8, you're getting a potential monster output at no ownership from a guy we would usually be all over in this spot at 5.8.
If he plays, it's like this thing here, like Bridgewater, Anderson, Moore with Galladay run back, or Bridgewater, Samuel, DJ Moore with Galladay run back is going to be a pretty decent part of what I do, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if I even, like, for me, what I found is I've actually double stacked this game in a couple of my early builds and not played the quarterbacks in either of them. And I've also tried it with the quarterback.
Nice.
The other quarterback for Carolina. But I think you can really do that this week. And there's a couple quarterback to receiver spots that I like without even run backs that we'll get into in a little bit.
Okay. All right. Very good.
Oh, and Detroit, by the way, if Bridgewater is out, would be I think he'd be the guy. Even though I like the offense, I still think that you can take shots at 2,300 on the Lions defense, just like Atlanta against, Winston.
Oh, that was the other one that you liked. Who you liked, the Detroit defense?
Yeah, I hate the way they play in general for fantasy, but if you take away Bridgewater, this is really an unknown situation. Bridgewater and McCaffrey, that's a pretty huge part of their offense. You could see some turnovers, you could see some mistakes from a guy who just never plays.
All right, you want to move ahead to the Cleveland game?
Yes.
I think my only take on this game, kind of worth mentioning, is that I do like the Cleveland defense a little bit here. I mean, I guess a decent amount. Wentz is really the worst. I mean,
man, how crazy is it that we're like literally one full year removed from my getting to a huge argument with everyone on DFS Twitter because I said Wentz was not a top 5 quarterback. Now, can you even imagine if there's 5 worse ones than him? I can't think of it. Anyway, sorry.
I mean, he might be the 5th best on his team, maybe. But no, he's really the nut low, and Cleveland's had you know, they were starting to be pretty sneaky decent. Then I don't know, they had some rough spots, and then they had that rain game. They ended up winning the rain game last week, right? But obviously nobody put up any real fantasy points.
Yeah, that was a nightmare game. It was the rain of 50 miles an hour.
I think Philly's are gonna get ripped this game out. But now, what do you do with the Cleveland running game now?
It's hard, man. I mean, because of the way this slate goes, I just think I'm going to have to. I like the running back position a ton this week, so I'm going to probably, like, unlike last week, I'm probably going to use running backs in my flex a little bit more this week. But I still don't know that I will entirely. I just really like a lot of running backs. I'll skip Chubb, I'll skip Hunt, and I'll go straight for Miles Sanders. I know this guy still leads the league in yards per carry. He can never get enough carries because they're always down too big. I still, as much as I think that Wentz sucks, I actually kind of like I'm not going to end up probably playing Wentz, but I kind of like the idea of playing a little Wentz to Rager or something like that. Maybe in a really long shot tournament, I'll do that and run it back with, or I could even throw Sanders in there because he will catch passes at times, and run it back with Jarvis Landry, who's a little bit too cheap against this Philly defense. But I don't know. I'm not excited. If we hear late word that Alshon Jeffrey is going to get full snaps at 3.7, he would fall into that. Hey, our guys from yesteryear that we want to play at 3.7, like AJ Greens. But we don't know. He still seems like he's going to be pretty limited as he was the week he came back. So assuming that happens, I do like Jalen Reagor and Miles Sanders, but they're really my only plays in this game. And I like both defenses. That's pretty much where I'm at.
You mentioned, actually, I was watching him during this. I think last game they played. You kind of turned me on to Reagor just as kind of like a player. I think last time we spoke about this, he's good.
Yes.
So yeah, I think he's good. I like the other guy also, by the way. I like Fulgham. As a player, you know what I mean. I don't think I'm going to play him this week. But the one guy I neglected to mention that
the tight ends.
Yeah, is that I don't know if you're still supposed to. I don't know whether you're still supposed to play tight ends against Cleveland, whatever. I don't really care. I mean, Goddard at 3,800 is pretty.
They're both good.
Pretty reasonable.
I like both tight ends, and I like them similarly. I have an edge to Goddard because I've seen the monster upside that he can show. You know what I mean? And I'll lean Goddard for sure, but I have some interest in Hooper too. These are two defenses you can definitely attack over the middle. But I prefer Goddard by just because of the upside.
Okay. Why don't you do New England Houston first?
Okay, I'll start this one off. So it's going to be really interesting because Jacoby Myers, as of the early projections and everything, is going to be one of the more popular plays in the slate. And what's annoying is that I like him a lot. I really do. They're using him every which way. He threw a touchdown the other day, and it was a nice one too. It was a nice pass. He's getting plenty of targets. He has, he's now got 31 targets over the last 3 games. This is a guy I think we have to it's like a tough fade in some ways for me. But I do think that there's some other opportunity here for both N'Keal Harry and Damiere Byrd against a defense that just can be absolutely lit up at times. They get the stadium upgrade because they get to play in Houston. So taking some pieces of this New England offense is definitely interesting. While obviously Myers is the best play, I like the idea of taking shots on these other guys. And I honestly wish Damian Harris got some of those, I wish a touchdown variance was on his side because I believe in the guy. I actually like him. And I just think I'm not going to mess with a good 3 running back, 3-headed monster. I don't think I'm going to play Cam much. I might throw him in a lineup or 2, and I'm going to play a tiny bit of Watson on the other side, even though I know he's going to be pretty popular. I'm going to side, though, with just playing these pieces of this New England offense, mostly Myers. I don't mind taking shots with I guess if I'm going to play with anybody from the running back, it's probably more likely going to be White than any of the other ones. But Damiere Byrd is the one who I'm sort of flirting with, maybe taking a chance on at no ownership. He's a couple weeks removed from looking pretty good. They've been in some really, really bad weather games, sort of phases them out. But he had 9 targets 2 weeks ago. I like those odds against this Houston team. And there's going to be a lot of cheap wide receivers in play, but he's a guy who I have as a completely unowned one on my list. Same with N'Keal Harry.
Cam Newton is currently my cash game quarterback.
Ooh. He's going to be pretty fine. I mean, it makes sense. I get it. I'm just not going to do it.
Cam Newton is currently my cash game quarterback, and the Houston stack is my third-rated stack.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. What kind of lineup would be if you're telling me that what's his name, Jacoby Myers will be popular? What kind of psycho would play Cam naked and run it back with two Houston wide receivers? With Watson being popular on the other side.
You're just relying on like multiple touchdowns from Cam and running, but that's that's possible.
Okay. All right. So that's just the bottom line, sort of. I'm gonna play some of the Houston guys. And yeah, I know all about it, about the Patriots defense and all the stuff. Good thing is there's really nobody for them to take away. I mean, so they're just gonna play. They played a good game this past week against. They had a good plan against Lamar, not the least of which was to root for a driving rainstorm. I think I didn't realize that the Watson was going to be that popular. But I'm definitely playing them. I'm into Newton with Bird in addition to Myers, like you were saying. And again, like under
Harry, by the way,
N'Keal Harry, is he back? He was active last week. I don't think he got a target.
I have a feeling he's going to play more this week. I think it was a very strange week last week, but you're right. I understand what you're saying. Bird makes a little more sense to me too, but I wouldn't write off that N'Keal Harry's back involved in the offense. It's going to be a very different type of game they played in a couple weeks. They've been in
That's
bad
true.
way. But I hear you, man.
So, yeah, I have more interest in this game than I normally would, because there's no real big game that I feel like I'm giving up exposure to do stuff like this.
Right. Yeah, I think that I'm not going to do the Duke Johnson thing. I don't think.
Let's talk about that,
because I like the price, obviously, but I like the running back position this week. Do I need to play a high-owned Duke Johnson? Maybe I'll throw him into a lineup or two where I'm playing some of these Patriots, but I don't know. It just doesn't feel like you're getting the most upside there, and it's not like we have a bad run defense in New England. I mean, it's sort of skewed because of how their games are played, but this is a pretty good overall defense. And we've seen this over and over again. We haven't really seen anything out of these running backs from Houston all season that have given us a game that we would want. So that's just not the way Watson plays. He wants to sling it downfield, especially at home. Maybe we get on the fade train, and I don't mean entirely fading. Like I said, I'll have like a little percentage of him, but I'm not going to play 20% Duke Johnson at higher than probably 10% myself.
I like Duke Johnson. I do. I think he's, again, as I mentioned earlier, there's a couple of ways you can go at running back, and one is choosing between 1, 2, or 0 of the 2 9K guys, and then there's kind of a couple of 5K guys that you can play, and we'll get to 2 more of them, I guess, a little later. And Duke Johnson's certainly one of them. And again, you think he's gonna be pop? Yeah, I think he's gonna be. Do you think it'll be 20%?
I like the running back position. Like, I'd rather pay more for Miles Sanders. I'd rather pay up there and use some of these wild card receivers, cheap receivers. And I don't think they're that wild card either, some of them. I've mentioned some wild cards, but there's some actually that make sense.
All right. Well, we'll talk about some other 5K guys coming up. All right. You want to move on to the next game?
Yeah.
So I was not okay. So here's a couple. Here are guys that I'm gonna. I have one guy I'm gonna regret not playing, and another guy that I might play and regret playing. Okay, so I'm not gonna play Derrick Henry, but New England ran the ball against Baltimore. And Baltimore is injured on defense, and I imagine that Derrick Henry is going to be very, very low owned at 8K. And I don't think this is going to happen, but I wouldn't be the slightest bit shocked if Derrick Henry went off. So I'm not going to play him, and he's going to beat me. I just know it. I just can't find the construction to make it work. I'm always up to these either 9K guys or these 5K guys. the guy I'm gonna play is I'm gonna play Mark Andrews for Baltimore. And that was, you know what? Just a couple of disclosures. I mean, I did for like a time kind of get into my usual idiot tight end play from Tennessee and to go back to what's his face, Anthony Ferkser at 2,500, but I didn't feel like I needed it after a while. So I'm going to be Mark Andrews is my favorite tight end play this week, and I'm going to have a decent amount of it.
Yeah, I actually don't mind, by the way, Ferkser too much. You know what I mean? I'm willing to take a shot on the 2.5K. Let's put it that way. Not like in love with it, but I love Mark Andrews. It's just the ownership's going to be out of control. So I love Lamar. I think Lamar is the guy. If I was playing cash games, I would play Lamar, just because the floor is high enough, and I think this is a reasonably good enough spot for him. I like the Lamar on FanDuel. It makes more sense to play Lamar with Marquise Brown to me, because the price is so low, and I think Marquise Brown has a game at some point. He'll be really low owned on DraftKings compared to where the Lamar stacks are going to be. So if you want to pivot off of the chalky Lamar to Mark Andrews, I think you could jump right over and play Marquise Brown instead. And I don't mind that. I like the Derrick Henry call. I'll have a little more than the field of them at probably less than he's probably around 5%. But I don't think I can commit too much because, again, I like some other running backs. But he is one of them I'd like to get at least 10% of, maybe a little bit more in my Baltimore and my stacks because I'm going to be using some Baltimore. I don't really have, other than he and Ferkser, a ton of love for anybody else on the Tennessee side, but I don't mind taking a wild card shot with Corey Davis at 4.8. Ready to move on?
Yeah, I am ready, but I have to remember to do something before. Let me do it now because you mentioned Mark Andrews. Just before I forget, for those who didn't realize this, and we really do more draft. Did you disappear, Bob? You there?
Sorry about that. Sorry for that little interruption, folks. This quarantine house is getting to be the death of me. I cannot get this internet to. It's been working. It's supposed to be perfect, and it's just been having a rough day. All right, Sheets. I'm gonna let you go back to where you were. Sorry about that, folks.
So I don't forget where I left off. What I was saying is, for those of you that play FanDuel, it's worth noting that in that Atlanta game, that Taysom Hill is listed at tight end. He's listed at 4,500 tight end. So I actually didn't run projections with him at tight end on FanDuel specifically yet. So you might hear about that. You might want to consider that. But again, just something to throw into your process is that you don't see it too often, right? I mean, a guy he's gonna get quarterback reps down near the goal line probably, or maybe throughout the course of the game. It's very possible that if Winston starts to piss off Peyton and throws a couple of picks, he might just bring Taysom Hill in. And I don't know if it's enough to play a guy at 4,500, but at a tight end position, which is typically pretty weak in general, I don't know. I just figured I would get your opinion on that.
I love that idea. I'm going to take a quick look and just see where the early ownerships are on him because I actually didn't check out the FanDuel ownerships yet.
Okay.
So give me a second here on that because I feel like that seems like it's crazy. That's basically like, minimum cost on FanDuel. So
how many points are you really going to get? You know what I mean? I don't know.
But like you said, there is a path though for all that, and then not to mention he can catch a pass. He could run one in. You know what I mean?
I know.
So it adds enough, and like if he gets in the end zone once, you're not going to get a ton. It's more likely he gets in the end zone twice than he gets you there on yardage, right? You know what I mean? That's what you're looking for. And if he gets in the end zone,
and it's a position just stinks.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Anyway, well, I'm going to go to check this out real quick because I am curious about that one. But let's move on to the next game in the meantime, Sheets, and I'll tell people the early Taysom Hill ownership in just a minute. So Taysom Hill's ownership on FanDuel was what we were talking about last. I'm pulling it up still. Sheets, let's move on to the next game, though, and I'll bring the ownership up for the people when we get there.
Okay. Pittsburgh, Jacksonville. I had a couple of thoughts on this. First of all, again, we go back to the running back position, and you like the running back position, and at the top you have those those great plays, and then you have a bunch of these 5Ks, and we talked about maybe DeAndre Swift being in that kind of like weird price range, and you said, well, he's going to be pretty popular. I will say this: I happen to watch Pittsburgh the last couple of weeks, and you can run on them a little bit. I'm just saying. I know that you're not supposed to be able to, whatever, but they've been. I saw that the Bengals were able to do a couple of things, and it seems kind of strange. But if you want something off the board, you could play James Robinson at 6,400 in a price range, which is ignored. And if people are going to play that price range, they're going to play DeAndre Swift or Mike Davis. So that's my first thought, is maybe take him. And then I need you to tell me about why James Conner never gets any work anymore, or never gets the ball, or is he bad, or I don't know. Because if you look at just kind of traditional game scripts, right, you want the lead back in a game where you have a team that's a 10-point favorite. So yet another one in that kind of 6,600 price range. So I wanted to ask him, but obviously the Pittsburgh receivers are all still in play. I mean, Jacksonville can't stop anybody, and I think Roethlisberger can fling the ball around as much as he wants in this game, if you want to know the truth. And it's kind of better for him that he's on the road, because he doesn't have to deal with Pittsburgh weather. He could go down to Jacksonville and just do whatever he wants over there. So I guess all those receivers are in play. They didn't make my top list, but you want to play Pittsburgh guys, certainly I'm not going to talk to you often.
Yeah, I'm all over. I love the Pittsburgh receivers this week. I like Ben Roethlisberger to Johnson the best.
Great.
I would go probably Claypool, Smith-Schuster really close to each other. Maybe I give a little edge to Claypool. I love these guys. I love what they're doing. Ben Roethlisberger is my favorite sneaky bet to win the MVP right now, 30-1. For a team that could go undefeated.
I saw that. That's
kind of crazy, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm into this. And what worries me about it is they could get the game in hand, and that's what people keep worrying about. But even when they've had the games in hand, they still sort of kept airing the ball out. The weird part is that you think that Ben Roethlisberger has taken so many hits this year. He's like one of the most hit quarterbacks. You'd think at his age, like, it would give him a break at one of these points. And I keep being afraid of that. But every time we've been afraid of that, look what he puts up. These absolutely monster games.
Yep.
And, if you have a team that can't stop a guy passing the ball, I mean, he's thrown the ball 46, 42, 32, 49 in his last 4 games. I'll take those attempts, you know what I mean? Especially the home run hitting receivers. And honestly, like, the receivers are the better play than Ben is. But I like Ben to those guys, and I like them separately. Deontay Johnson's one of my favorite plays in the slate. And I like Claypool and Smith-Schuster just behind him. Like, I don't think that there's maybe as huge a gap, but I really think you want to try and get these guys and hope that the variance goes on your side and it's their day for a big day, because it's hard to know which one it's going to be. I think Johnson's actually the most, sort of feels the most reliable, but Claypool probably carries the most upside. It's kind of, and actually Johnson's right there with, it's just really interesting, and they're all going to be low enough owned. Johnson will be the most popular, but I love that. I love these guys. They're priorities for me. All in the 20% plus range at the moment. I might change that as it goes on. And I'm going to try James Conner. They aren't really doing that running thing, but one, I'm sort of hedging against the fact that I'm overloaded on the receivers. So I won't play a bunch of them together because I don't love this game stack, but I don't mind playing a Conner and Robinson portion of this game stack. I still haven't seen the weather in Jacksonville this week. But as of right now, assuming that all is good, I will be playing the Pittsburgh passing game. And then I will throw in, James Conner's going to be low owned, so I can get 10% of them and probably be above the field. And James Robinson, I'll probably be with the field around 10%.
All right, you want to move up? We want to move on?
Yep.
So on Monday, when I fired up the things, I had no totals, I had no anything, I had no salary. I had salaries, no projections, or no whatever. And I scanned along the site. This was what I came up with. Was that Cincinnati, Washington was going to be the game that I was going to be my favorite game. It was going to be, and it took me about literally 3 seconds to come up with it. And I'm like, this is easy money, man. Give me Burrow. We talked about that. I think he's really good. I know Washington might have a decent defense, but whatever. I'll play with Boyd and Higgins. That's my first look, right? Boyd and Higgins have my easy run back with McLaurin. So I love playing him. And then Logan Thomas at 3,300. I can even go double stack that and rock the house. And I'll tell you, the second time I looked at it on Tuesday, the only thing I really changed is that I decided I maybe want to get a little AJ Green in. The same thing. Instead of maybe a more popular Higgins. So I found as though this is kind of what I wanted to do. And then it was really interesting. Then when projections came and I started looking at things, I'm like, the best point per dollar play might actually be, if you want to play this, quarterback would be Alex Smith, right? Like in the whole slate. I mean, you just did point per dollar and nothing else. So then I'm like, well, maybe just have Alex Smith be the quarterback. But then when I was looking at some podcasts, whatever, I actually heard people recommending Alex Smith, like down at that price range. And I'm like, oh, well, let's go back to Burrow then. People are going to play Smith. So this was actually my first game that I was just totally into. Now, projections have not agreed with me, like, at all. So you know what that means? It means I won't play as much of it. How about that? So, but I'm still playing it. I'm just still, no way this is happening and me not having it. So I'm going to be playing Burrow. I know Washington's defense fine, whatever. But again, it's a week where, it might not require a huge blowout game. I'm going to play him with Boyd for sure. And then maybe some Higgins, maybe some AJ Green, and McLaurin's just gets literally every target from Washington. Maybe some Logan Thomas. I don't think I'm going to do the now you could also, this is more, this is more maybe your thing or somebody else's thing. Like you could do J.D. McKissick if you want, running from the Washington side, or Antonio Gibson. There's a lot of guys you can play in this game, and I'm not gonna, it's funny, there's a guy from Roto Grinder. It's really funny. There's a guy from Roto Grinder. I always kind of identify myself with him a little bit because he's kind of known as kind of like a chalky type of person, I suppose. But every once in a while, we always end up kind of, we always end up kind of on the same type of things. I was listening to him go over something. He's no longer with Roto Grinders, he's someplace else. And he was talking about his games, and this was his favorite game yesterday also. I'm like, oh, shit. So we got me liking it. We got Mr. Chalk Guy liking it too. And I'm going to play him.
All right, so I'll say there's things I like about this game, and first of all, I love both of these defenses.
There you go.
I'll start it off there. I don't mean that to be, antagonistic.
Oh, dude, I'll show you my sheet. Washington is my second favorite defense.
Yeah, these are the guys who I like this. I like a lot of spots in this game. Okay, so you have McKissick has 29 targets the last 2 weeks. That's the way Alex Smith runs the game. The problem is the split situation. Now, if somehow one of those running backs happens to get injured and even just misses a few snaps or something like that, like somebody could have just a monster game without even getting in the end zone. You know what I mean? These guys are combining for 40 plus. Gibson's going to have some ownership. I like Gibson. I'll probably be with the 10% or the field or so that plays him. I would prefer I'll probably have the same percentage of McKissick, who's going to be lower owned, but I'm going to play these guys. Honestly, the floor is pretty high if they're playing from behind, which I think they will be. I think Cincinnati. I think this might be. I'll take Cincinnati to win this game outright. I'll take every part of Cincinnati in this game that I can possibly get in terms of a straight bet. They're underdogs. I don't even need it. They're going to win this game, in my opinion. And I think that they could do so handily, depending on how much pressure they're able to get, which hasn't been much so far. But this Redskins line is not like anything special. I just feel like there's a chance this goes really sour for the Washington offense. It still means, and in that case, Alex Smith probably still puts up a decent game because he's going to throw for 300 yards and he'll throw the ball 50 times if they're down. But if they're playing and they're ahead, you're talking about a lot more Antonio Gibson, a lot less McKissick. I'm playing the Cincinnati angle. So anyway, the guys I'm ahead of the field on, I'll be way ahead of the field on AJ Green. Maybe the 10 to 15% range, but he's not going to be owned. Tyler Boyd, I think, is a good play. I'll be ahead of the field on him. I'll be ahead of the field on Higgins, who I think is awesome. They really have a good connection, he and Burrow. I like Joe Burrow, by the way. I actually don't mind him as a quarterback option this week just because of his escapability on a defense that can bring pressure. He's actually going to probably add to his rushing upside and maybe some breaks outside the pocket, look for some big plays to Higgins or Boyd or Green even. Anyway, I'll be below the field on what's his name? Let me get this guy out of here. I'll be below the field on the chalky guys, pretty much. I don't want to play as much Terry McLaurin. I get it. I'll have a little tiny bit because I'm playing enough of Cincinnati, but I don't want to pay that price for him. I like some other receivers that are just a little bit above him better, and I'm not going to play as much Gio Bernard as everyone else wants to play. I don't think Washington's run defense is that bad. I don't think Gio Bernard is any sort of lock for 30 fantasy points, or for 20 fantasy points. And I like other running backs, so I'll be below the field on him. But I'm not Xing him out of my pool. He'll just be below the field. And I'll be ahead of the field on Logan Thomas. Cincinnati can't guard over the middle. For some reason, Logan Thomas is getting ignored this week, and I don't really know why. He's 3.3. He's not the most exciting guy in the world. He has gotten some more targets with Alex Smith, and so you want little pieces of all these guys. But there's nobody in this game I'm playing more than 15% of. I just like little pieces of all of them.
I mentioned, I think when we were talking about Monday's Showdown, maybe. I don't know why this came up, but just overall like thoughts on football. I mentioned that I watched that Pittsburgh-Cincinnati game last week with interest, and although it was an impossible spot for Cincinnati, Burrow showed that he can make some good passes, and he made some good short passes also. And one of the things that they were able to go to, and this is against Pittsburgh, they were able to get those kind of like play action slants over the middle going pretty nicely, actually, a couple of possessions. So I think they'll go back to that. So I think Tyler Boyd is He's a really, really strong player.
Yeah, I mean, I like all those guys. I just don't find myself with a huge ownership on all of them, just because I like other plays. I do think it's a game where you're going to get a lot of targets and a lot of fantasy points just from the PPR side of things.
So Miami and Denver. Okay, so first of all, I have an opinion on the game. Actually, I think this is a very difficult spot for Miami. I actually like Denver plus the points at home here. Miami's been much improved. I mean, obviously, I've been on them as a team for like a while, and Tua's been really good and all this stuff, and they're getting some stuff going. But I think coming off of the games they've been playing and then going into Denver is a rough spot. I do like Denver plus the points here. I also like two other things from this game. I like, as you know, I've been alluding to these 5K running backs. I like I like Melvin Gordon on the Denver side as a 5K running back, and I like the Denver defense. Denver's actually my top-rated defense, just above Washington and Atlanta, actually, and Cleveland. So Denver's my top-rated defense, and Gordon is one of my top-rated running backs, and it's kind of weird, right? But that's just the way it's turning out. And like I said, depending on your construction, if you want to play one of the 9Ks. It helps to be able to play a 5K. So I do like him. I'm not getting to Fant this week. I wasn't going to get to Parker's or any of these guys. Oh, but wait a minute. It's a different team. Okay, yeah, and that's pretty much all I have from this.
I like this game like as a real game. I think it could be a good game. I also wouldn't be surprised if Miami just went in there and just beat the hell out of them, to be honest with you. I think Miami is much, much better than people are giving them credit for. I think that as great as I think Burrow is, I think that people are going to look back at this as the beginning of I think these two guys are going to be stars forever, but I think Tua is going to be the real major superstar.
So we're in for $1.
What are we in on though?
Well, I said I really like Denver plus the points here.
I'm not saying that I necessarily love Miami to beat them. I could see it going that way is all I'm saying. I'm not like necessarily.
All I heard was Miami beating the hell out of them.
I could see Miami beating the hell out of them. I'm not guaranteeing that one though. I do feel like that with Cincinnati. I like them to win. You know what? Why not? Maybe I'll do that, Cheeks. Maybe I'll just do a little parlay on Miami. I just don't know the 3.5. I hate giving up the 3.5 if I was doing a bet. You know what I mean? I just hate that. It's a horrible number to bet on, as you know. So anyway, the main plays for me in this game are going to be basically. I'm going to be probably below the field a little bit on Fant, maybe near the field. I'll take a shot on Salvon Ahmed. We'll see how that ends up going with him this week. I'm interested in this. I played him last week at 0.5% ownership at minimum cost, so it doesn't feel as good to play him in a more obvious 10%. But Jakeem Grant, I think you're going to have to take some shots with this guy still. And I don't mind a little bit of taking the Miami passing game. If even what you say is true, like if you think, maybe play Melvin Gordon and run it, you run a Tua stack on the other side. This is a very weird week because I do think a lot of quarterbacks have upside, and I don't think there's anybody that I feel married to with the extremely high floor. So Tua at 5.8 is sort of going to be in play for me until he has that monster game. You know what I mean? I don't know how much I'll end up really using him, but he's on my board. But mostly just going to be about 10% on Grant and Parker. And that'll be my main ownership for the game, with maybe like one shot or two of Jerry Jeudy. And Melvin Gordon about 5%. So I'm not quite into that one yet. Go ahead.
So you want to
move on? Yep.
Hang on, I gotta see. Transactions have been processed. Yeah. So did I get him? No, I'm looking at my. I did get him. No, I'm looking at my season long one, the one I did with Crane.
Yeah.
Remember, I'm literally the worst. Okay. I don't even know the rules. Like there's like these weird like injury reserve things that I haven't been paying attention to. I've used like none of my salary as far as, and I'm 6-4. Okay. Mm-hmm. But it's awesome. It's in a 12-person league. I'm 6-4 with the 11th most points total. I run so hot with my individual matchups.
That's hilarious.
So the guy I picked up, because I've had no running backs, is playing in the next game. So let's
get to it.
Let's talk about that. So I went and I picked up Balaj from the waiver community. Considering my existing running backs are only, well, I have Duke Johnson and then I think that was it. Yeah, I had to drop, and I had Mostert, who's on injured reserve. I have everybody that's either on bye or injured reserve. So in addition to Duke Johnson now, I had Adrian Peterson. He was my second one. So I got now Kalen Balaj, and yeah, let's go. I mean, he's another great 5K guy. They're a 100-point favorite, against the Jets at home. He got all the work last week, right? I mean, 18 rushes for 68, 6 targets, 5 receptions. Sounds good to me. I like him a lot. And in addition to that, if you don't like that, if you think the Jets can hang in there, I like the LAC passing game. I like Herbert and Williams and Keenan Allen. I couldn't quite run it back with anybody from the Jets. I mean, you want to try Mims again? Fine. But, these Chargers are good plays.
Yeah, it's hard because I like Keenan Allen, but I probably am going to have to make myself a little below the field at that ownership. I think I'll just, what I'll do is I don't mind just taking like 10% of Mike Williams instead of the Keenan Allen thing at 5.1, because he's going to be just unowned in this spot. And actually, this is the kind of matchup where they'll go off with him, because Keenan Allen's like where they're doing like the ball control thing. They're running their offense. They're playing in a tight game. If you really buy into them, they're going to beat the hell out of this team. It's going to be, usually from huge plays, which more often go to Mike Williams than they do to Keenan Allen, in my opinion. So I'm sort of going that route. I'm not on the Kalen Balaj train at all.
Why not? What's that?
I don't want a chalky guy at 5.6 with this Chargers offense.
Oh, it's going to be chalky. I didn't know that. Okay, all right, sorry.
And the Chargers rotate their running backs like you wouldn't even believe. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Tremaine Pope gets a bunch of carries a few weeks back when it looked like Kelly had taken the job. There's nobody. It's not any of their jobs. Don't listen to anything you hear, because it's not true. It's just unless the coach comes out and says it's only his job, they're using 3 running backs. So I'm not going to pay 5.6.
So who do they have? They have Balaj and who else?
Tremaine Pope and Joshua Kelly.
Josh Kelly. Okay.
And Kelly was the guy a few weeks before. Even when Jackson was playing, Kelly was the guy at times. Like it's Tremaine Pope carried the ball like 15 times or 18 times in the game or something.
Which one's the rookie? Kelly?
Kelly's a rookie, I believe. Yes.
So if they do have the lead, I presume they would give him the work.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, I thought about him for a second, but the truth is, if you're going to make the play, I actually like P. Ryan and Denzel Mims on the other side of this game. And I like Jay Crowder too, as an overspend who no one's going to play. But I really think if you can, the one thing the Chargers have shown us this year is it doesn't matter how big their leads are. It doesn't matter who they're playing. The game is going to be close, probably, and it's probably going to have some fairly good scoring going on. We saw Denver come back on them. They gave it, what, they have 3 18-point leads they blew. The Jets are a lousy team, but I don't mind taking Denzel Mims at 3.3K with who's going to get, should get a number of targets. Same thing with P. Ryan as the running back spot. I think that, and then you also are going to have the one who's really going to get peppered with targets is Jamison Crowder. 6.1, it's a little bit more than you want to spend, but I actually think that Jamison Crowder could end up with like a monster game here. So he's my off the board play from this one.
The Chargers are, by the way, like 50% owned in Survivor, and if they lose, I'm going to be very, very happy.
I just want to say the only time that Jamison Crowder was last week that he didn't have 10 targets in a game this year, and that was a game with 40 mile an hour, 50 mile an hour winds against the Patriots. So
I have one other thing I want to say, and again, it's much less relevant for wide receivers, and it's much less relevant for cheap wide receivers. But just as a matter of disclosure, my top point per dollar wide receiver on the entire slate happens to be Denzel Mims.
Yeah.
But that's just point per dollar 3K, and who cares? You know what I mean? But just throwing it out there. I presume, are people going to play him or no? He's not being talked about.
I think it's going to be like less than 10%, but probably like between, I don't know, 7 or 8% maybe.
Okay. All right.
Maybe he'll get a little higher. It gets a little traction as the week goes on. But the Mike Williams, Hunter Henry is a great play also in this game, and he's going to have some ownership. But these are great plays. Hunter Henry might not end up as high owned as people think because he's so close in price to Mark Andrews. So I think that's a really interesting. There's interesting ways you can stack this game, and I actually like using the Chargers for stacks. I don't mind Herbert and running these guys out with some of the Jets run backs.
Is Devontae Adams the best wide receiver in football?
It's hard for me to. I think he's one of the best. I mean, and numbers wise, he's the best fantasy guy. I'll tell you that. I don't know what else to say.
Better than Hopkins or not?
I don't even know if that's who we're. Yeah, I mean, I guess like it's a lot circumstantial for these guys. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't personally. I think he's right. I think he's as good as anybody. I can call him the best receiver. I'm not going to have any issue with it. There's just other good receivers out there. And this week particularly, I want to be beneath. I don't want to play many of these guys. So you can talk about it if you want to.
Okay. So in the Green Bay Indianapolis game, I had one just kind of projection-based guy, actually two, and then one it's kind of like gut play, whatever. So Devontae Adams, just like I said, Devontae Adams and Keenan Allen are just always going to project to be great plays. They just are. And it's no different this week. Yes, they're playing a tougher defense, but by the same token, they're not like a 10-point favorite anymore. So it's going to be a closer game too. So Green Bay might even have to throw a little bit more. So Devontae Adams is a really, really good play. We have to think about what we want to do with Aaron Jones again. I'm kind of off of the whole Aaron Jones thing. I mean, I don't know, man. I really think that they're going to continue to share the workload with either Jamal Williams or the other dude. And I don't want to attack the Indianapolis, rush defense either. So I'm not really into Aaron Jones. The other plays from this game I do like a little, again, just because it's such a stupid position, is Trey Burton at 3,100 again, if you want to play him at tight end. But then kind of like a gut play, and this is not like, he really hasn't been good. I know people are going to get like Hines like a little love because he's like exploded a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't mind trying it. Another 5K guy, like trying freaking Jonathan Taylor again. He hasn't I can't think of any reason why I'd want to do it. Okay, but the fact of the matter is that you can still run on Green Bay. You saw I was a Cook. Cook is different, whatever. You can still run on them. They still want to they still want to run the ball. They don't want to put it in Rivers' hands. And Taylor's a rookie. They want him to be the guy. So I don't know. Yet another guy in this 5K range that again, I'm just giving a little disclosure. He doesn't really project all that well, but it's got this weird feeling that they're going to be able to run it on Green Bay, or at least they're going to try.
Yeah, the guy hasn't. I don't think he has a carry in the second half in the last 3 games he's played. I think he hasn't even played in most of those second halves, and it's not like they were trailing in all those. And see Hines out rushing him. I think I just say forget it. Play Hines at no ownership. It's a better play.
Oh, Hines is going to have no ownership. I thought Hines was going to be everybody's favorite.
No, you got Duke Johnson and all these guys, and maybe he'll get a little bit of traction as the week goes on because the total of this game. I don't mind Aaron Jones as a bounce back, but I'm not going to have play him at chalk either. And I think he's got enough upside in him, even with the getting some work for Williams. I think that at 7.2, it's still a great price. It's not terrible ownership either. It's just not going to do much. I'll have a tiny bit of Devontae, but I'm not going to I don't want to play what I think is still going to end up as a fairly chalky play against one of the best defenses in football. And I feel that way about this Indy defense. I think they're really, really good. I'm going to have to shoot myself in the foot again and have to play myself a little bit of T.Y. Hilton at 4.2K. I know people will play Pittman a little bit, and I don't mind that either. But if I'm going to be overweight on any side in this, it's going to be on the Indy side, playing against a weaker defense, rather than Green Bay and what's really for them a down matchup against a really, really tough defense, even though they can still put up points. I just don't want to get heavily involved in it personally.
So I've got, as you see, I got Hilton in my fantasy, in my season long. He's on my bench, and I have to think he's on my bench. Well, is he better though than Marvin Jones this week if Golladay plays?
I mean, probably not.
Probably. Right, okay.
Probably not on average, but I would say as a GPP play for like that's the different thing,
Right.
For GPPs for this.
And by the way, if you ever were wondering why I'm 6-4 and surviving, is because I got Devontae Adams every week. So.
Yeah. Right, Devontae Adams is obviously a great play, and it's indoor. He'll probably still have a big game, and maybe I'm going to end up, you're going to end up needing to have had him. His price has come down a tiny bit, but I'm just looking other ways this week, and there's other guys who are cheaper that fit my builds better, and I'd like the expensive running backs a lot, so that's where I'm at.
Dallas, Minnesota, last game of the day, and just a matter of disclosure. Again, I'm still working on these, but I'm gonna back up my takes a little bit. Is that the Minnesota passing game is my second favorite stack on the board, and Justin Jefferson is probably my favorite wide receiver on the board. Just everything else considered. I guess they're gonna have to be popular, I suppose. But I feel as though that Cook is going to be uber chalk, and I guess that game script is going to be assumed more than the game script that allows Justin Jefferson, for example, or Adam Thielen to have ceiling games, right? I presume that people are going to be more interested in the Dalvin Cook thing. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to play some of the passing game. As a matter of fact, I feel as though if I have to pick between Kamara and Cook, which you don't have to. I mean, you can play them both. I'm actually more in the inclination to fade Cook than to fade Kamara for no other reason that I would rather play leverage the Minnesota passing game than the probably chalk, or maybe not chalk, I don't know, than the Winston passing game. So there's that. And the other thing about this game is that, first of all, I know that Dalton is off the COVID list and off the concussion protocol. Are we 100% sure that he's starting?
Can we ever be 100% sure that anyone's starting these days?
That's true. Because Gilbert was not bad last week, and they might start him. I don't know. So
well, it's possible, man.
Yeah. So the other guys I like, it's a little bit. It's actually quite ironic that since Zeke Elliott, got me in that GPP from first, got me when I got second and he got first. I don't think he's rushed for like more than 2 yards a game since then. Now there's a lot of reasons why, but yet another low-owned 6,500 dude that, again, if he gets 25, 30 fantasy points, nobody's gonna be like, wow, that's sick. You know what I mean? Because he is Zeke still. He just is. So this was actually, you're looking at this. This was, again, my very first build on Monday. Okay, was exactly this. And I don't know if I'm going to stick with it, whatever. But I don't know, man. Elliott at 0%. I don't know. Minnesota, their defense, I guess, is fine. But, I mean, they still want to, I don't know, Zeke, until further notice, Zeke is still the main running back. And regardless of who the quarterback is, he's still a very viable option for checkdowns. And I don't know. I'll use him. And the other guy that we talked about off air a little while ago, I think was Michael Gallup, maybe at 3,700. He could be an interesting play on Dallas side also. But the more I'm looking at it, the more I think that I prefer Kamara to Cook if I had to prefer one.
So this is my other major stack game without necessarily using the quarterbacks.
Oh, let's go. I love it.
I love taking a shot on Zeke here. I really, really do. 6,500. This could end up looking like the dumbest thing in history that people don't play him. And
wouldn't be the first dumb thing we did, and it won't be the last.
Exactly. Other dumb things that aren't drawing enough attention is why Michael Gallup, who has 19 targets over the past 2 weeks, is at 3,700 going to be completely unowned. Yeah. In what I consider to be a good matchup against a weak Viking secondary that's gotten away with a really good schedule. Yeah. And even when they didn't, but by the way, it got absolutely lit up. The other reason their numbers have been better is because they've been down so huge in games. They've just shut everything down. This other team shuts down the second half almost of a lot of the games early in the season. They've been playing better lately. I really like the idea of being ahead of the field on everybody except for Cook, because I just think that at 40%, if that really holds, I would just rather switch to Kamara at 1/4 the ownership. If those ownerships come anywhere near holding, where I do play Cook, I will be looking to pay up for him with a Derrick Henry, I'll also be using him with this guy in the same game with Zeke a little bit. I like this game, and I love Dallas's offensive side. My preferred target would be, well, it's Cooper. I love the Gallup play, and I'm willing to go heavy on it, like 20% at this moment. I'm willing to go heavy on taking shots on CeeDee Lamb. I think there's enough upside in this offense they played some tough defenses, and this Minnesota defense, I don't buy it. They haven't been good most of the year. They've had some good matchups lately, as I mentioned. And I think this is a game that could I don't know, I want to say sneaky shootout, but like everybody's going to play the Minnesota side and hardly anybody's going to play anyone but Cooper from the Dallas side. And I like all of these guys. And I like, you mentioned CD as well. I don't even mind if you want to throw Dalton Schultz into the mix. This is a game that I could see getting a little bit like those earlier Cowboy games were, and you get a lot of scoring going on. So I want a ton of exposure, and I want to be ahead on Jefferson. I want to be ahead on Thielen. Prefer Jefferson over Thielen, but I like both of them. And this is a really good spot. So maybe now we can sort of just sum up all the stuff that we went through, because I do feel like when you go through it all, like it really does help. Gives you a real feel like of what you want to do.
I love the idea of the stacks without the quarterbacks in general. Mm-hmm. I think it's great.
You do that. You play Lamar on the other side with what's his name, and play your other double stacks, and you're in great shape, in my opinion.
Well, what I was going to think about is again, and you don't have to do this, right? So, like based on like these are the things that I would do when I would just kind of just listen to people and just kind of like aggregate the information. So based on what we said, like you want like a low owned, like who's your second favorite Pittsburgh wide receiver? Just come up with one besides Deontay Johnson.
Claypool.
Can't quite get there, but like for example, if you wanted to play Jefferson, Elliott, CeeDee Lamb, and then go back to this Pittsburgh idea, which I thought was kind of interesting. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, you can't quite get there with this, but you can mix and match some of the low owned. There you go. You can put Ferkser into the tight end position, and then play the Jets. Whatever. Which actually is not that bad of a play.
No, it's not.
So you can, like you say, take something like this. This is. I mean, this something like this. Mm-hmm. No, I mean this wins $1 million if it hits. You know what I mean?
Right. I agree.
So let's review. So my review would be this. See, Kamara. I'm very glad that the chalk is expensive in a way. I really was a mess last week with this Mike Davis and Duke Johnson. And the other chalk running back, I played literally all of them, right. and Aaron Jones, whatever. I just felt like if I didn't do that, it was going to be bad. And then my other idea was, if Mike Davis busts, it's not the biggest deal in the world because he's only 4K. But if Dalvin Cook or Kamara bust, that's bad for you. You know what I mean? Like you certainly can't get away with that. So I do think that I'm going to play some lineups with neither of them. Mm-hmm. I felt as though we reeled off a couple of kind of like really pivoty 6,500 guys, a couple of 5,600 guys. I think you could play. I think you could do that. And then again, it's a week where there's no real one game that stands out, at least to me,
Right.
And so I'm going to play around with those stacks. So I'm going to review like my favorite stacks, for example. Like, and again, it goes back a while now. So again, my gut stack the start of the week, which again, this doesn't project well for me, but I'm doing it anyway, is the Cincinnati Washington. And then Carolina passing game, Houston passing game with New England, and Vikings we just talked about, and the Chargers. Those are my favorite stacks, and I am probably not getting as much of this Atlanta New Orleans game as most people.
Yeah. Again, I don't think that game is going to end up being as popular, but
Okay.
I do think that I'm going to end up with Lamar is probably going to be my highest owned quarterback, and it's
Really? Okay.
It's really simple. It's not a game stack. It's not the stack that I love the most. It's that he has the best opportunity to break the slate, and he's got a high enough floor where I can win with him. And Andrews is cheap enough at tight end where it makes the easiest pairing that it's been in a really long time. While that might be a chalky combination, I have so many different things I can do elsewhere. But I also like Roethlisberger a lot. I like Herbert a lot. Burrow and Winston are the other two that I'll be using. Those are my main quarterbacks. I will throw in some PJ Walker, and I will throw in some Cam Newton, and maybe a Tua lineup or two, but that's mostly what I'll be doing. I'm still flirting with the idea with Cousins. I don't know if I'm going to end up going there yet, but I'm sort of open to that idea, so I'm thinking about it. How about for running backs? Who are like,
how about something like that for like all the cheese?
Let's see.
That's
perfect. Yeah.
right.
There you go. And that's what there you go. You started like that. Boom. And then you can play whatever you. Well, I mean, Lamar and Andrews will be popular, but Henry's not going to be popular.
Nope.
So, I like that. Let's see. We've got okay. So then, how about running back sheets? Where do you stand with these guys? Because I have a bunch of guys pretty highly rated.
Okay, yeah. So for me, I mean, let's call it as Cook and Kamara are I mean, to me, are the best plays. And then under that, my next favorites are Duke Johnson. I like Kalen Ballage. I like Melvin Gordon, the 5,600 range. I'm not as into Swift as maybe some people would be. I would rather pivot to James Robinson as opposed to Swift. And I guess I refer you back to everything else I said, but those are like my favorites.
Yeah, I've got Kamara and Cook like you do, but then I've got Sanders and Zeke as my next two highest owned.
Oh, you're really going to be high owned on Zeke, like over maybe 20%, maybe?
I've got 25% right now.
Wow, that's great.
I don't know for sure that I'll end up sticking to that, but I really think this is a good spot. I would prefer it if Dallas was at home, but I mean, I'm still going to take this shot. I mean, the truth is he's still getting the work. They haven't opened up much of a line, but look, Pittsburgh and even Philly is like, these are better run defenses. Washington's a good run defense. Like we have I don't trust this Minnesota defense, and I think that they're overrated. I think Dallas can actually move the ball on them. So I'm going to go heavy on a guy who could be 8K if a few things broke differently. Then I'm going to jump down and I'll play a little, I'll probably be with the field around 15% on Mike Davis. I'll be a little bit lower on Aaron Jones than the field. I'll be lower than DeAndre Swift at around 15%. And I'll be right with the field on Salvin Ahmed, and then I'll be above the field a little bit on Gibson, and I'll have J.D. McKissick in about 12% of my lineups. And I'm lower on Duke. I'll be below the field on Duke. I'll be below the field on Gio. I'll be below the field on James Robinson. Now that I look back at it, I thought I would be near the field, but I'll be below it. I'll be below the field. I'll be above the field on James Conner, but below the field on Kalen Ballage, and below the field Swift. And basically all the top high-owned guys, I'll be below the field at all the top 6 running backs.
With receivers, I refer you to my stacks, but again, I'll just reiterate from the Carolina receiving core, Anderson, Moore, and to some extent Samuel. From the Chargers, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. Minnesota, I do like Jefferson the best. And in a non-stacked game, Devontae Adams is always a good play if you can get him. And and again, just as individual plays, if they're not going to be that popular, I mean, I do like Michael Thomas from that game. And I do like Julio Jones from that game.
Yeah, that's I'm not too far different on those two. I like those guys quite a bit. I have DJ Moore as my number 1 receiver along with Deontay Johnson and Justin Jefferson. And then I have Amari Cooper, Adam Thielen, Curtis Samuel, Jacoby Myers, Michael Gallup in a similar range. And then down to Claypool, T.Y. Hilton, Julio Jones, who I'm actually going to move up a little bit because I'd like a little bit more of them. And the guys who I'll be significantly beneath as far as where I expect the ownership to go I like Jacoby Myers, but I'm probably gonna end up being beneath on him. I'll probably end up being beneath on Keenan Allen, who I also like, and playing other parts of the passing game. I'll be beneath the field on Devontae Adams. I'll be beneath the field on Brandon Cooks, and I'll be beneath the field on Terry McLaurin and Robbie Anderson.
I'm very glad as we wrap this up and we're going to do the showdown slate. Very glad that the Seattle-Arizona game is not on this slate, because if it was on this slate, you talk about Chalk City, USA. I mean, that would be.
Oh my goodness, it wouldn't even be crazy. I'm excited just to watch it for a showdown slate. It's been yeah. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Last thing we'll talk about real quick, because I do think there are some good ones. The tight end thing is weird because you're going to have so much ownership on Andrews. We haven't had ownership like this on tight end all season. But I still like Andrews. I like Henry as an interesting pivot in a similar price range. I love Goddard too. He's the other guy you want to play. It's funny because it's just natural. I realize I'm below the field on Andrews just because it's too much. But I still like Andrews a lot here. So I might even end up a little bit above the field. Logan Thomas, Hayden Hurst, Noah Fant. Those are the other guys I'm using.
Well, one other guy, just because he rates very similar to all these other idiots that we talked about, is Tanyan at 3,200.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
All right. So let me give you again. I'm going to reiterate my two sports wager. I'm not going to wager on it, but my two sports picks of the week. I like the Broncos plus the 3.5, and not surprisingly, I like the Saints Falcons under.
Oh my goodness! It's not even that high of a total too. This guy loves bet the under. It always makes me nervous.
Exactly.
And he's always right. So I actually think I would just follow him on that one. But I'll take my bet of the week is it's really weird to say this because I love Pittsburgh in general and they beat I'm not going to do that. I'll take my favorite one. I'll take Burrows and Cincinnati to win.
I like that.
I will take what is the other one I had?
Cleveland, you like them?
Oh, I like Dallas.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Dallas to cover against Minnesota.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, one last thing I just want to mention because I do think the defenses are interesting this week, and there's a few that I really like. We didn't mention defenses. I have higher ownership on. Well, I'm going to basically just be playing 4 defenses, or 4 or 5 maybe. Bengals, Dolphins, Falcons, Washington football team, and the Browns. And that's pretty much it for me.
So I'm actually going to be a little different than you. So I actually don't have a standout like defense I like. So like I like Broncos a little bit more than like some of the others. So I'm actually going to set a maximum when I do my defenses. I'm going to actually have a max 20% on any defense if I run a script, because they all just seem very similar to me. So that is a little different way to approach it, I suppose.
I agree. Yeah. All right, man. Well, hey, cool. Guys, hopefully this was helpful. We appreciate you guys staying in there with us through some technical difficulties. Sheets, anything else before we get out of here?
No, we're good.
All right, guys. Good luck out there, and we will see you at the top of the leaderboard.